Welcome back. Bryan gets his chance to test the Roto Grip Idle Helios. Not sure if he'll watch this review first or the Rubicon UC3, but sadly for Bryan, the results are somewhat the same. The Idle Helios ultimately was more workable for him than the UC3, but he had to work really hard at finding the right shape, release, and speed to kind of really get to the pocket. On the house shot, we test on that high outside friction combined with the strengths of the cover and core on the Helios meant he couldn't quite play up the friction boards, and if he moved in a few boards, he had a soft hit as the Helios just starts too early and is too smooth down lane. If he straddles the oil friction line, he actually got over under, so depending on what distance he pushed it into the friction, he went from soft corners to buckets to high on the headpin. Just too big of a variation. Idle Helios has that strong early startup, but then uses too much energy in the windup, not leaving enough to drive through the pins for Bryan's game. Ultimately, what he found effective was to go back into the friction to the right and amp up the speed. It's all somewhat logical, but big picture, somewhat disappointing for him. In our test of the Pepto-Bismol, the original Idol, he really liked that ball. It was smooth, but a touch later and a touch more punch than the Helios, and that balance meant he straddled the house wall and it blended it more nicely. The Helios just uses a bit too much energy a touch earlier, and that small delta was enough to make it that much more difficult. Again, this was a big contrast to what I saw with the Helios, so you really have to evaluate for yourself. I think this will work better for Bryan when he's on a more tapered shot with high volumes in the fronts.